Well, as has been stated, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I know that's probably not the word we usually use. We use the word thankful or grateful or whatever, but I'm excited, and I hope that you are too, that we get to do this. I think sometimes we neglect to respect the fact that we get to do this. It's not like that everywhere, but it is here, and that's something that we should be excited about and grateful for. And this morning, I am talking about the unpleasant and uncomfortable subject of blood. It's something that our society and culture has definitely pulled far back away from. It's something that we don't see every day. It's not like just 100 years ago where if you wanted to have steak tonight, you had to see some blood first. And we live in a very sterile and homogenized culture where the idea of blood makes people faint even. But it used to be part of life. Very much part of the Old Testament life and those cultures coming up through the sacrificial system where blood was essential. And I would actually shudder to think that if you didn't see any blood, that you probably didn't sleep well at night. But have you ever thought about it being a gift? Typically, we don't think of it that way. And I don't know about you, but I'm certainly this way. Have you ever met someone that doesn't receive gifts very well? They get a gift and they're kind of like, oh, wow, and they're kind of awkward and they don't really know what to say, and it's thank you, but it's really awkward. You know, and there's this awkwardness that takes place in that moment where they're grateful, but they still don't know how to exactly act upon that gratitude. And it's this weird exchange, uncomfortable exchange, and I know that I'm that way, and maybe a lot of us are. And I don't know why. Maybe it's that I don't feel deserving of gifts sometimes. It's not something we did a lot when I was a kid. The idea of gift giving, we didn't really celebrate birthdays in my house. We didn't really do Christmas exchange. And so the idea of getting a gift where someone has thought of me and I didn't get you anything in return, I don't feel deserving. Or maybe we feel guilty in some way. And if you aren't that way, I'm sure you can relate to the idea. It is sometimes hard to receive a gift, especially if it's expensive. Especially if it's expensive. And of all the most expensive gifts that I can dream up, it's not jewelry, diamonds, or gold. It's not exotic vacations, though those are nice. It might be a trip to the grocery store. It's pretty expensive these days. It's not even a car. A Tesla Cybertruck. Most expensive car on the road these days, I think. It's none of these. It's life. Life is the greatest gift that can be given. And life is most precious of the most valuable gifts that can be given. When a baby is born, we celebrate, right? We celebrate the gift of life as it is truly something to marvel. If you've ever been present in the moment where life happens, it is life-changing because you see just how incredible it is. I'll never forget the effect that Kaya's birth in particular, but Cole's also, but the effect those births had on me and the catalyst that they became as part of my journey to faith. And what's funny is that every year, as that year passes, we celebrate the birth of this person that we love with a party. And oddly enough, gifts. Gifts that represent the very gift that they are to us, that each of us are. And this memorial occasion is not a time to mourn, but a time to celebrate the life of the ones that we hold dear, because we recognize the value of not only their life, but of all life. And it is something that should be celebrated. It's no wonder then, when someone passes from this life, we grieve. And we mourn because the life we loved and celebrated is no longer with us. And the reality of their presence is no longer the gift that life gave us. But we're left with the gift of precious memories. It stands to reason then why we keep their memories alive with us, because they truly were a gift to us while we had them. That's probably another lesson all on its own, but how much more then when a life is given for us and not to us? We recognize the significance of sacrifice to those who gave their lives in defense of the freedom of our country. The fact that we can even meet here today and do this, somebody died for this. And I think we can appreciate that. We can recognize the significance of sacrifice when those who may have passed on donated organs to individuals in need of a transplant. Or you ever think about this? You ever recognize the significance of giving blood? Since we're on the topic of blood, you ever think about the blood that you give to someone who needs it can live? Think about it. You give a part of you that's vital to your own life so that someone else can continue theirs. There's not much greater gifts. You see, the life and the gift of life is in the blood. In Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, it says, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar." Why, God? To make atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes an atonement for the soul. In this verse, God states that the blood is ordained as a means of atonement, and that he gave it to make atonement for the souls of people. So thousands of years before scientists understood the complex and extraordinary life-sustaining properties of blood, the Bible informed us of that. We already knew that. I love it when science catches up to God. It's just another evidence, an example of proof, and that God truly thought of everything. That blood was not only a metaphor and a symbol for life, it was the equivalent to life itself. And in most occurrences where blood was shed in Scripture, it meant that life ended. When we see blood shed in Scripture, something's life ended. To remove the blood is to terminate life. You can't live without it. There might be a larger idea there too. But blood was God's ordained means of this affecting atonement. Again, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I've given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes atonement for the soul. Atonement for sin was achieved by sacrificing an animal's life in substitution. And the shedding of blood was the most critical element of that. It was the blood of the guiltless substitute offered on an altar that served as payment for the sins of others. It's gruesome to think about in our society and how far removed we actually are from witnessing this. Can you imagine witnessing this? The horror of blood being shed on that kind of scale and magnitude. We should be grateful. That's kind of the point, that we don't have to. Part of the gift we've been given is that God took that away from us also. That process. Through God's ordained system of sacrifice in the Old Testament, the Lord laid the groundwork for a message that would not be fully grasped until later. Look at Hebrews chapter 10. In Hebrews chapter 10, it says, the old system under the law of Moses was only a shadow, a dim preview of the good things to come, not the good things themselves. The sacrifices under that system were repeated again and again, year after year, but they were never able to provide perfect cleansing for those who came to worship. The full meaning of the life is in the blood would only be revealed in Jesus. All the blood that was shed before him. Who knows how many millions of gallons of blood of animals couldn't satisfy the justice of God. And then in verse 5 of Hebrews 10, it says, that is why when Christ came into the world, he said to God, you did not want animal sacrifices or sin offerings, but you have given me a body to offer. Verse 10, and by that will we have been made holy through the sacrifices of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all. The body that he came to offer. The blood that he was willing to give. Verse 11 says, day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties, and again he offers the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. When Jesus came and offered up his life, pouring out his blood, on the cross, the perfect sacrifice had finally been made. Finally, there was enough blood. Finally, there was a righteous blood, a perfect blood, a complete blood, the only blood that could give us back what we gave away, what we threw away. In Hebrews chapter 9, verse 14, it says, how much more the blood of Christ will purify our consciences from sinful deeds so that we can worship the living God. For by the power of the eternal Spirit, Christ offered himself to God as a perfect sacrifice for sins. And the very thought of that is something to celebrate. What a gift. He offered himself for us. What a gift. How awkward do I feel now receiving this gift? How undeserving do I feel now receiving this gift? How guilty do I feel accepting this gift? And by the way, Jesus, I didn't bring you anything in return. But we do. In Psalm 51, during the time of the old system where the blood of bulls and goats was shed on a regular basis, but would never be enough. During that time, David penned the very mind and heart of God on this issue. He said, I would offer you sacrifices, Lord. But sacrifices that you desire are a broken and contrite heart. He asked for our hearts in return for this great gift. The prophet Joel said, rend not your garments, but your hearts. Tear not your clothes. Give me your heart. He says, I don't care what you show me on the outside. Show me that on the inside, you're mine. Is it so much to ask? I cannot help but think about the thief on the cross. In Matthew chapter 27, it reads this way. At that time, 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those passing by were blaspheming him and shaking their heads, saying, you who are going to destroy the sanctuary and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross. And in the same way, the chief priests and scribes and elders were mocking him, saying, he saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we'll believe him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he delights in him. And he said, I am the Son of God. And the robbers who had been crucified with him were also insulting him with the same words. But notice the detail that Luke adds. And one of the criminals hanging there was blaspheming him, saying, are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other answered, and rebuking him said, do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve. for what we have done. But this man has done nothing wrong. And he was saying, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. And he said to him, truly, I say to you today, you'll be with me in paradise. I don't know how else to describe what took place in this man. Between the short time when he too hurled insults at the King of Kings and this moment that Luke records defending him. I don't know how else to describe it except a complete revolution in the heart. He had come to a conviction that there was a realm beyond which he was suffering. And he was suffering the just rewards of his deeds. And there was another tribunal other than the one that condemned him. He had heard Jesus appeal to a throne higher than Caesar's. And in this man's heart, there's a revolution. I would offer you sacrifices, but a broken and contrite heart is what I desire. And I believe at this moment, this man, this thief, this man's heart is contrite and broken. He sees the gift of life pouring out of the King of Kings. He sees the blood. And he realizes, by no other name under heaven can I be saved. And he was moved to make his own appeal to Jesus in what might be described as a dying man's last grasp for life. And he begs Jesus, remember me. Don't forget me. Don't leave me here. Remember me when you come to your kingdom. And what a grasp. What a grasp it was. He knows that before God, he has sinned. He has done wrong. In just moments before he had mocked along with the others, God's true king, he entrusts his soul with a man next to him bleeding out all the blood that gives him life. To which Jesus responds, I got you. Today you will be with me in paradise. Much like the paradise that may have been described when God created the earth and Adam and Eve and to live in before they fell prey to Satan and were evicted by their sin. This thief will enter into paradise, not at the end of life, but at its true beginning. And no doubt when he hears Jesus breathe his last breath and announce his commencement of his spirit into the Father's hands, this thief understood the value of every single drop of the blood pouring out of Jesus. The gift of life, the greatest gift ever given. How do you receive that? How do you receive that gift? If ever there was anyone who perplexed the angels, when he entered into paradise, it would have been this thief. From convicted criminal and blasphemer to repentant and faithful servant, can you imagine? As he enters, the angels ask him and say, what are you doing here? And the only answer this man can give is the man on the middle cross said I could come. What better gift? The man on the middle cross said I could come. He invited me. What better gift could we all awkwardly or not receive as we too are the thief on the cross? Than for Jesus to say, it's okay. They're with me. I invited them. We are the thief. We are Barabbas. We are Peter. We are Pilate. We are all of them. We are undeserving receivers of the greatest gift ever given. May we receive it this morning with humility and gratitude, no matter how awkward that it may seem. The only gift that he expects in return is your heart. Can we give him that this morning? As we come to memorialize the blood, the greatest gift that was ever given. and his body that he offered up in our place. Can we give him our hearts this morning? Let us not lose sight of the importance of the blood given, because it is the blood that was truly the gift of life.